Hello everyone, and welcome to Debonair Cyber. My name is Devin, and in today's video we're going to start a series of videos on the intro to red teaming track in Hack the Box. This series is designed to get you off the ground running with an introduction into penetration testing and red teaming techniques. This first machine, called CAP, is designed to go over web enumeration, packet capture analysis, and insecure direct object references. This is one of the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, so it's pretty common to find out in the wild. And with all of that, let's get started. Alright, so here we are on the home page for the CAP machine. We've already got the machine booted up and ready to go. We can see our target IP address here. We're going to click to copy that and come over here to our virtual machine. First thing we want to do is make sure that we have connectivity with the environment. So I'm going to move over to my Hack the Box VPN folder that I made previously and sudo open VPN into the lab. You'll have to download your own lab folder. They have videos on how to do that in Hack the Box itself. And I'm going to click enter. We'll know this is successful by looking up here at the top right. We can see our internal IP address in Hack the Box's network, so we'll know we're successful there. I'm going to open a new tab in my terminal here, and then we're going to add that IP address into the etc hosts file. Enter my password here. I'm going to call that cap. Save that, and then make sure that we have connectivity by pinging cap.htb that we just entered into that etc hosts file. We can see that we're getting stuff back. We're going to Control C, and we know that we're good to go. Okay, now that we've ensured that we have connectivity with the machine, we need to start an nmap scan to see what ports are open. So I'm going to back out of here and make a folder structure for this machine. We can use the P flag to specify multiple folders to make, and then go into that folder that we just made for the nmap scan for CAP in particular. Okay, so now we're going to start off with an nmap scan. We're going to do a scan of all ports. We're going to make this a fast scan with the capital T flag, and we're going to specify cap.htb that we just specified in the etc hosts file. We're going to let that run. Alright, so with this we can see we have 3 ports open: the FTP port, SSH, and HTTP. So what we can do from here, now that we know that those are the only 3 ports open, we can specify those 3 ports in an nmap scan and do a little bit more enumeration with those, with the SC and SV flags, version detection, and some other scripts. Specify our IP once again, and we can actually save this output to all file paths into our nmap folder so that we can have this nmap scan saved. And we're going to let that one run. Okay, so one thing we can do while the nmap scan is running is check to see if there's anything we can access through the FTP server without logging into it. We can specify FTP, and try to log in there. No username or password. And we can see that that login is incorrect. It's not going to allow us to access any information there, so we can just exit out of that. The next thing we can do, now that we know that nothing is really going on there, is we know that the HTTP port is open, so we can browse to that. See, we have some kind of security dashboard here. We see that we have this 5-second PCAP plus analysis. It looks like we have a download button. We can click that. and it'll download a PCAP file that we can then open in Wireshark. So when we go to open this PCAP, this one doesn't look like it's doing much, but we know that that function is there. Look at IP config, and we can see that it's looks like it's running the actual IP config command on the server itself. And the same with this network status tab. It's just running netstat on the machine. What we can do though is go back to this security snapshot, and we can pay attention to the data/4. This makes me think that maybe we can route to other numbers, maybe 5 or 6. This is what is known as an insecure direct object reference, or IDOR. This is that OWASP vulnerability we discussed in the introduction to the video. So what we can do is take this and copy the request, move over to our terminal, and begin to fuzz on that request. I have the command already written here, and I'll run through everything really quick here. So we're going to use a tool called Fuzz Faster You Fools. We're specifying a word list with the W flag, and we're going to use a word list from seclists called directory list small.txt. We are specifying that as our fuzz directory. We're going to specify the URL with the U flag, and we're going to paste that URL that we got from here into here, but we're replacing, in this case, the 6 with the fuzz that we specified here. So this is telling us the injection point that we want this directory list to go into when we're fuzzing. When we first start this, it's going to give us a ton of 302 errors, these 302 status codes. What we can do to get rid of those is specify the FC flag. This is going to filter on a status code. You can find all this stuff in the man page for FUF. And we're going to specify that 302 code, and it's going to filter out all of those, leaving us with these 200 status codes that we want. This means that we can actually route to these and pull up a page. So we're going to let this tool run for a few minutes, and we'll be back. Alright, we're back. It looks like our FUF job has completed. We can see all of these 200 status codes that have come through. What we're going to begin to do with these is just take that and see if there's anything on that page that would be interesting. And we're going to do that for all these numbers until we find something interesting. Okay, so if you were following along, luckily you didn't have to take too long to get down to the 0 flag, where if you plug that 0 in, you can see that there are a bunch of packets that we can download from that endpoint. So we'll click download, and we'll open that in Wireshark. So we have this PCAP open in Wireshark now, and we can begin looking through some of what we have. We can see here we have some FTP flying by. We can see user, specify the password, and then in this one we can have that password in clear text. So we know now that Nathan is the user, and bucket hat for me is the password for that account. So we can come in and actually, let's just make a note here. We have Nathan, and we can copy the value, and then we can actually save that into a credentials file for our notes. Save that into the Hack the Box cap. So now that we know we can log into the FTP server, it's a good idea for us to go and check that out, I think. See what we might be able to find. Okay, so now we're back in our terminal and we can actually type out this credentials file that we made earlier to help us out. We can copy this password and FTP into the machine just like we did before. We can type in Nathan, paste our password, and we can see that our login is successful. So from here we can enumerate a little bit further. We can actually use system commands at this point. And here you can see that we have your user flag. Another thing we can commonly check for in systems now that we have credentials is to make sure that this user may be reusing the password on their account. So we know that password reuse is a very common issue in security. So we can exit out of this FTP and see if we can SSH into the system as this Nathan user. Gonna accept that, paste the password once again, and we can see that that is successful, meaning that there's another thing we can, if we were doing a write-up on this machine, that we can specify in the report. Password reuse, never a good thing. So now that we have SSH access into the machine, we can do a little bit of initial enumeration. We can check the ID. We can see that there are no specific groups that Nathan is a part of. Maybe we can run sudo though. We have the password. And we now know that we can't run sudo on anything. But those are two initial checks that are very easy to do as soon as you land on a machine, and something that you should check every time you land on. One other command we can do is netstat, and I find it a little bit easier to read if we specify the ANO flags. You can see this is the same netstat command that we saw earlier, but we're just double checking here to make sure that we can't see anything that we maybe couldn't see before that this Nathan user may have access to. I don't see anything interesting here, but it's good to check. Okay, so now what I want to do, now that we've taken some initial enumeration steps, is get a tool called linpeas onto the box. And we're going to walk through this step by step on how to actually get that tool downloaded and into the box that you're now on, into CAP. So I'm going to make a new terminal here and back out to my tools directory that I made earlier. This is a good idea to stay organized on your machine. You can see right now we don't have anything in here, but we can go to our browser. We're going to search for linpeas. This is an enumeration tool used for privilege escalation on Linux boxes specifically. We can actually go to the releases and download the linpeas.sh. Now we just want to move that MV from our downloads into the tools directory that we specify with one dot. And we can see that we've successfully done that. Clear the screen here, and the next thing we want to do is start a Python server. Make http.server, and we can specify the port. I usually like to do 80, and we can see there that we're serving this tools folder on port 80. So then we can go back to CAP as our Nathan user, and we can use the wget command and route to our machine. We can see the IP here as a reminder, /linpeas.sh, the file that we want to download. And we can see that that's successfully downloaded. Awesome. So if you were to try to run linpeas directly after you download it with the // command, you can see that it will fail. You also need to add the execution permission on cap when it gets there. And we're going to let this tool run for a couple minutes. Okay, and we're back. We can see a whole bunch of stuff fly by when we're running that tool, and it can be intimidating at first for sure, but don't worry, practice on this tool makes perfect. You'll eventually begin to notice more and more things as you practice with reading the output of linps. It's a lot. In this particular case, though, the syntax highlighting does a lot for us. You can see when the tool first begins to run that it will specify different colors in terms of like things that should be catching your eye. In this case, the yellow and red is telling us that there is a pretty likely attack vector that we can utilize, and this is under the files with capabilities. We can see that our Python installation on cap has some questionable configurations. So in this particular case, linps is telling us that Python is configured to have the cap set UID capability configured. So we can come and look at the man page for capabilities. We're going to search for set UID, and we can see that we can make arbitrary manipulations of process UIDs. In other words, we can set the UID to any user that we want to. You can begin to see now why this is a pretty serious misconfiguration. Alright, so now that we have this information about the set UID, we can take it and see if we can find something in a site called GTFO bins. This is basically a list of Unix binaries that can be used to bypass all kinds of different stuff. So we're going to come in here and search for Python. We can see all these different functions, shell, reverse shell, file uploads, but we can also see that our capabilities here, and we see the cap set UID capability, and then we can actually copy this, go back to our Nathan user here. We can clear the screen, paste that in, and then all we have to do is specify that we want to use that exact file path that has that set UID capability set. And then we can see that we are root. From there, all we have to do is change directory into root, and we can see we have our root.txt. And with that, I think that's going to wrap up today's video. As a reminder, we learned about some web enumeration techniques, we learned about IDOR, and we learned some insecure configurations with Python. As always, please don't forget, if you're enjoying the content here, to like and subscribe so you'll never miss another video. Alright, we'll catch you in the next one.